So on this video we're going to talk about Chapter 8, Lesson 2. Chapter 8, Lesson 2, once again, I'm not solving for a specific numerical answer unless it tells me to. That's going to be in the next video. We're going to skip 8.3 and jump right into 8.4 on the next video. And that's going to be solving for a numerical answer. On this lesson, we're going to be either solving for the algebraic equation that I can come up with, or I'm going to use a numeric or a word equation and write it out in words on what I would need to do. So as we move forward, then this document right here, you should have seen on Canvas yesterday. It's all sorts of key words that I will find in story problems or can use to write story problems for each of these different math functions, including what type of words would indicate an equal sign. Our key word right now is going to be the word is, which is the first one that's shown. We're going to see is a lot, we're going to use is a lot, and therefore that just means it's equal to. But if I wanted to look at what certain words would mean division, then I can see the quotient of something, or the per this, a ratio of, and ratios are fractions, and fractions are always division. So these are key words that will help us always in mathematics and story problems of figuring out what it is that they mean. So as we work forward, mine did turn out really blurry when I tried to copy and paste from my computer. So I apologize for that, but you should be able to follow along with the pictures and where the lines are and be able to fill in your book pretty well. So this first question talks about trapezes. And a circus is going to buy a certain value or a certain total of trapezes with this money. I don't know how many trapezes they are going to buy. However, I do know how much each of the trapezes cost. So if I take all that information, I can create an algebraic equation, something showing an equal sign and a value to help me solve for it. Once again, the solving for will be the next video that we do, and as we move forward from this point. But just figuring out how to write the equation, I know I'm going to start with how much each trapeze costs. And when I go up to my scenario, I see $275 each. So that's the cost for each, and that's what I'm going to put at the beginning. And I know I'm going to multiply by however many trapezes I'm going to buy, but I don't know how many that is. So since it's the word trapeze, then we just use the letter T to represent it. My equals to is then my total cost of what it's going to be. And they tell me that I'm going to be able to spend $1,650. So my answer in this scenario is writing out the algebraic equation, $275 times T for however many trapezes that would be. And that is equal to $1,650. So what we see tomorrow's video is when we talk about the opposite function on the opposite side, which I had you recall yesterday, which I taught you before Christmas break for a couple months and we worked on several times. If I am multiplying by this number, I would divide by that number on the opposite side. That would help me to solve for T. That's tomorrow's video. So right now it's just learning how to write the algebraic equation or the word equation that would indicate some algebra set up in it. On the second scenario that they give us, we talk about Ben. Ben's making some salsa, and in that salsa we need tomatoes, which should be logical. If you like salsa, you know there are tomatoes in it. We're going to talk about, well, he needs 3½ cups to make the recipe. He used 4 tomatoes and he filled up 2 1/4 cups. Well, how many cups or how much do I need to add to it to get my total cost then, or my total in cups then? So I start with how many I've already filled. Well, I've already filled 2 1/4, so that would go there. I'm going to add whatever I still need, so I know I'm measuring cups, so I use the letter C to indicate cups. That's going to equal 3 1/2 cups. So then, as some of you skim through these problems, now you have a 4 that you're trying to figure out where it goes. The 4 is there simply to trick you and confuse you. You don't use it at all in this math problem. That's why it's important not to skip math problems when it comes to reading them. I know you don't want to take the time to read them, but I need to read what it's asking so I know what information I need versus what information is not important. If I wanted to, I would read that and say, well, I know I don't need to know how many tomatoes were cut That's not important. I could just actually cross that out in my book or on my test, and I don't have to worry about it. When it comes to writing the actual equation, then, I know it's an algebraic equation, so I'm going to add 2 1/4 plus however many cups is left to find, which is equal to 3 1/2. So when we go through these, then, it's asking to do the same thing, but now I'm going to have more specific word equations that are set up. I'm going to take the words, I want to make sure I put things in the right order. I want to make sure I understand what type of math I'm doing so that I can write an actual algebraic equation. 6 fewer than a number is 46 33/100. So when I say fewer than, I should know quickly that that is to subtract. If I don't know that, if I have saved that Word document to my computer, I can go over there, click on it real quick, find the word fewer or fewer than, and see that it does indeed mean subtraction. Well, what am I subtracting? If I know it's 6 fewer than, and this is where some of you got confused on a previous lesson when we were doing these, you have to realize that you're taking the 6 from, because it's 6 fewer than a number. So I'm going to be subtracting by 6. It has to be my second term that's in this problem. Well, what comes in front? Well, it says 6 fewer than a number, so I really don't know. So that's where I use my variable. And it just says fewer than a number, so I use n to stand for the word number. So that gives me n minus 6, and what is it equal to? Well, it tells me it's equal to 46 33/100, so I plug that in. That is going to be my algebraic expression, or equation, excuse me. That is my answer. On B it says 2/3 of the cost of the sweater is $18. So I look at the key terms of the cost. Well, if it's of the cost, then I know I'm doing what type of math? The multiplication, right? We've talked about that since the very beginning of the year. So I know C represents cost, and if C represents cost, I know that I'm going to multiply because it says of the cost. Then I just begin plugging in the information that I see and building my algebraic equation. I'm going to say 2/3 of, so I'm going to start with the 2/3 of is my multiplication, which they give to me, of what? Of the cost, according to the wording. I don't know what the cost is, so I'm going to use C in place of the word cost. I know that's equal to what? $18. I plug it in. This would be my algebraic equation. Keep wanting to say expression, and I apologize. Algebraic equation, and therefore that is my answer. So when I look at these, then, my second example they give down here, they're showing me now I'm going to see an algebraic equation, and I have to figure out how to write it. How would I write this? This says A plus 15 equals 24. So the blank of A and 15. Well, it's adding the blank of what? Let's see. So that would be the word sum, right? So it's the sum of A and 15. And we said that our key term we're going to be using in this lesson is when I have equal sign. So is 24. That would be a word problem. So it's a word algebraic equation. So I would write that. It also says, well, then I could also look at it differently and start with the number and see what I'm adding it to. So 15 what then A? Well, that would be the term more. So I could write 15 more than A is the 24, because I know it's equal to. In the same way that if I have division, so R divided by 2/10 is equal to 40, the blank of R and 2/10, so notice the R and 2/10 are going to be written in the same order they are in the math problem itself. Well, the division is finding the what? Hopefully the word quotient popped into your mind. So the quotient of R and 2/10 is 40, according to that information. Or I could just say what I'm doing mathematically to it. R divided by 2/10 is 40. That would work as well. So we're going to be doing that in our assignment. Down at the bottom then we have these to look at. It says to explain how you can rewrite the equation of n plus 8 is equal to 24. So that it involves subtraction rather addition. So that goes back to our first couple weeks of school when we talked about fact families. Fact families of addition and subtraction. I know I have 2 addition problems that go with 2 subtraction problems. Multiplication and division fact families mean I have 2 multiplication problems that go with 2 division problems. And it's just rearranging them in that order. So that's the commutative property that we talked about last week. So if I switch those, n plus 8, then I know it's 8 plus n. But this tells me I need to use subtraction. So if I'm using subtraction, I have to start with my big number, and I have to subtract with something else. So if I'm going to take it and find an equation, an algebraic equation, then I would take my 24 minus the n, and that would still solve, therefore, for the 8, which they told me I was adding with. I went a little quick, sorry. One student wrote that 18 times d is equal to 54. For the sentence, the product of 18 and d equals 54. Another student wrote d times 18, different order, is equal to 54. For the same sentence, are both students correct? Justify your answer. So as you saw, before I went a little bit too quick, it is indeed yes, they are the same. Well, why are they the same? Well, once again, according to the commutative property, in addition I can put them in any order. In multiplication, I can put them in any order, still going to get to the same answer. This is 18 times d, and if I flip those, d times 18, they're still going to be equal to 54. So your answer would be the commutative property tells us that we can put them in any location and we'll get the same answer. So if you're not ready to move on, please pause the video and write that answer down. Then you go on to the next slide. So on this page, we begin working our share and show. It says to write an equation for the word sentence. So I'm going from words into numbers and letters. 25 is 13 more than a number. What operation does the phrase more than indicate? So hopefully you automatically know that that's addition. So I'm going to add, and the equation would be what? So I could start with having that 25 is, so is my equal sign, so it's a little backwards than what we've seen so far, but I just put my 25 is equal to with the math on the other side. Doesn't matter what side the equal sign is on, or the answer. It can be on the left like this one, could be on the right like we're used to, but math is still done the same way. It doesn't affect my answer at all. So when I look at the words, then it says 13 more than, so I'm just going to keep it in that order. 13 is more than the n that they tell me about, a number. That would be my algebraic equation. That is my answer. This one says, write an equation for the word sentence. So now they give me the word sentence, and I'm going to write the algebraic equation. The difference of a number and 2 is 3 1/3. So the difference of tells me to do what? Tells me to subtract, right? And if it's subtraction and they give me an order that it has to be in, that's the order I have to write it in my algebraic expression. So the difference of a number and 2. So it has to be subtraction, and it has to be in that same order. So I'm going to take n minus 2 equals, and they tell me it is equal to 3 1/3. So I write 3 1/3. That is my algebraic equation, and that is my answer. Number 3, 10 times the number of balloons is 120. So is my equal sign. I know that is going to go at the end. And I have 10 times, times being the key word there. That means multiplication or times. So I'm going to take my 10 times my n, because it just tells me to use number. And I know that is equal to 120. That's my algebraic equation, and that is my answer. But now I have to write it in reverse. You have to write it in a word equation. So this is x minus 3/10 equals 1 7/10. So I have to start with my subtraction. So I could say that, oh, I put a 5 instead of a 3. My apologies. But I would have 3/10 less than, because it's subtraction, and less than would tell me I would be taken away from what? I would take it away from x, and that is 1 7/10. I could put x minus and just say exactly what it says. So I could write x minus 3/10 is 1 7/10 as well. On number 5, 25 is equal to 1/4 n. And we talked about that. That's a coefficient with a variable. A coefficient and a variable together means multiplication. So I know I'm multiplying. So I would have 25 is, well, it is what? It's 1/4, and we use the word of generally for multiplication. Of n. I could put 25 is the product between 1/4 and n, because product tells me to multiply as well. So I'm going to finish up with doing these, and then the assignment will be yours. The quotient of a number and 20 7/10 is 9. So I know where my is, that's equal. I look at my keywords quotient. Quotient is what? Like we said before, it's the answer of division, right? And if, just like with subtraction, if it's given in a specific order, I have to keep it in that order. So a number and 20.7, so I have to have my number divided by 20 7/10 is my equal sign 9. That's my algebraic expression, and I'm good to go. Equation. I said expression. 24 less than the number of snakes is 35. 24 less than. So what is that mathematically? Hopefully you thought subtraction. It is subtraction, and I have to know what order it goes in. It says 24 less than a number. So I know that has to go second, because I'm going to take it away from whatever number I have, and I don't know what number I have. So I have to have n minus the 24, and then that is equal to the 35 that they tell me. That's my algebraic equation, and I'm good to go. Number 8 says 75 is, so I know I'm going to start with my answer and an equal sign, 18.5 more than a number. The key words more than tells me to do what? Tells me to add, right? So I'm going to have 75 is 18.5 more than the n that matches. I'm good to go. D degrees warmer than 50 degrees is 78 degrees. So the is 78 degrees, I know is my equal sign, and my answer, it's going to go at the end. My keywords being warmer than tells me that I'm going to add, right? So I'm going to take my D for degrees, and I'm going 50 degrees warmer than what? Whatever D is, and I know it's going to be equal to 78. On these two then, I'm going backwards, I'm looking at it, and I'm writing out what it's telling me. I have 15G equals 135. So, one of them that I can do, well, 15 times more than a number. So 15 times then the number is 135. I could just put the product of 15 and G is 135. This one is W divided by 3 3/10 equals 6/10. I could say the quotient of, and in subtraction and division, remember the way, the order that they're worded in is which one has to go first. So it's the quotient of a number, because I have a W there for my variable, and 3 3/10, 3.3, so I know it has to stay in that order, is, for my equal sign, 6/10 as my answer, and I'm good to go. I could have put that, let's see, I lost my idea, but W, there we go, divided by, and just tell specifically what I'm doing, 3.3 is the 0.6. So it could be a little less, fewer words. Doing a couple of the review questions here. My voice is being shot again. The sides of a triangle have lengths of S, S plus 7, and 6S. Write an expression in simplest form to represent the perimeter of a triangle. So a quick review of perimeter. It just means the distance all the way around. If I'm doing a four-sided shape, I have 4 sides to add. In this case, it's a triangle, so I have 3 sides to add, and they give me my 3 different measurements. So I set it up as addition, and I plug it in with this information representing the 3. That takes us back to last week then. Like terms. The like terms are the ones that have the S's to themselves. So I have an S, and an S, and like terms, since it's addition, I just push them all together. 6 plus 1 gives me 8. So my simplest form of writing this math problem would be 8S plus 7. That is my expression which it asks for. In the simplest form, find the perimeter of the triangle. On this question, it's a longer question. It says to evaluate, or Julia evaluated the expression, a math problem without an answer. What value should she get as her answer? So I have 2 to the power of 4, or 2 to the 4th, 243 divided by 9 squared, 9 to the 2nd power, minus 81. So when I write that out and I begin to look at what I need to do, that is an order of operations, the OOO. I have to follow my order of operations. As for several extra presents has to be done first. Do I have any absolute value, square roots, exponents, or parentheses? I do, right? I have 2 of them. I have 2 to the 4th power and 9 to the 2nd power, 9 squared. So I'm going to solve for those. And what does this look like mathematically? Well, it tells me to multiply the base of 2 by itself 4 times. So I'd have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And this mathematically looks like, if you thought 18, it's not 18. 9 times 9. Because the 2 tells me to write the base 2 times and multiply by itself. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 16. 9 times 9 is 81. So then I plug both of those values back into my expression. 16 plus 243, that stays the same, divided by, I plugged in the 81, minus the 81. So now what happens? I did my absolute value, square roots, exponents, parentheses. Ask for several extra presents from my dear. Multiplication and division has to be done from left to right. And when I look at it, I only have one of those. I have division. When I take my handy dandy calculator and I type in 243 divided by 81, it gives me the answer of 3. I keep my 3 and I drop everything else down in the same order. So now what am I going to do? Well, addition and subtraction is the only thing that's left. They happen to be in that order, but if subtraction was up front and addition was in the back, I would still start at the left. I'm going to start with 16 plus 3, which is what? 19. And 19 minus 81. So you ought to have said, maybe you said, well, I can't do that, but you ought to have said from the last 3 days. Okay. So I'm subtracting a larger number from a smaller number. That's an integers question. I can't subtract integers, so subtraction becomes addition. Change the sign of the second number, and the ones that were messing up on the assignments were the ones that didn't want to show that we changed subtraction to addition, and then we changed the sign of the second number, so I put that negative sign. When I see that, then I go to my next set of questions. I now have addition of integers. Can I add integers? Yes, I can. Do I have the same sign? No, I do not. Keep the sign of the largest one. The largest between 19 and 81 is 81. So I know my answer is going to be in negative form. So then I have to subtract. Put my largest on top, underneath my smallest. 81 minus 19 gives me 62. So I know my answer is negative 62. It's a lot of work, I agree, but I can get to the answer by following the order of operations and doing logical math. The last one we're going to look at, a rope is 114 feet long. One is the by now that there are 3 feet for every 1 yard. If you don't know that, then you would go back in your book and look at your conversions, or in your notes that I've given you in your math folder, and you would look at your conversions and find out there are 3 feet for every 1 yard. So I'm putting this in groups of 3. So I take my 114, and if I want equal groups, then I'm going to just simply divide by 3. 3 goes into 114, 98 times 98 what? 98 yards. So that's our lesson. The key to this lesson is understanding what these terms represent. If I know what these terms mean, and when I say terms, I mean definitions, I mean terminology, vocabulary words of mathematics, not numbers or work separated by addition and subtraction. If I know the quotient means division and subtraction, then I'm going to find a difference, or I'm going to find out what is less than. I have a sum for addition, or plus, or they're combined. Times, product, of for multiplication. Is my key word for equals. If I understand those words, I understand how to do this set of math questions. If you're not sure, open up this file and look at it as you're working through it. Should be pretty easy for you. Should be over and done rather quick. It took 27 minutes to go through it. I'm figuring it's going to take you maybe 15 minutes to do the assignment. So then you need to go to Moby Max and work on other things, or work on something that you have that's due possibly tomorrow or Friday, like your questions for reading. If you have any questions while you're working through it, then just simply come and ask.